Hello folks, and welcome back to Noob-Splaining. My name is Wolf. For those of you that are new around here, this is where I explain the crazy, over-the-top world of Warhammer 40,000 that nerds like me love so much. Now this channel's aimed at two types of people, those who know little to nothing about 40k, and those who are a bit more experienced like myself, and love nothing more than poking fun at it. And what better way to poke fun at it with this new video series, The Good, the Bad, and the Stupid. And in this episode, we're going to be taking a look at the Tyranids. The biggest difference though, I've never seen this script before in my life. It was wrote for me by Victor, who is currently shackled in my basement, along with Gaz the Orc. So if you enjoy it, don't forget to buy Victor a coffee, because I certain as hell don't feed him. Now, let's get on with it, shall we? So, as with last week, the Tyranid Hive fleets share a whole lot of similarities with each other, but almost as many differences. So I've tried to include examples of things that generally hold true across the entire faction. But when dealing with a sample size this large, there will always be outlying pieces of data and exceptions to the rule. I've just tried to keep them to minority exceptions. So perhaps this is just personal preference playing a part, but I think the introduction stories for the Tyranids are among the coolest in the 40k. There is two main sources for their origins. The first, at least the first one to be written, the other example is later in the timeline, was about their discovery and first acknowledgement by the Imperium when an ill-fated Mechanicum chump named Magos Varnak and his band of merry cyborgs accidentally happened to find themselves upon the ocean world of Tyran Primus, right before Hive Fleet Behemoth was about to drop in for an unscheduled seafood lunch. Because all this happened in the Tyran system, the newly discovered threat was dubbed the Tyranids. Wait a fucking minute! Victor, you piece of shit! I told you we were covering Warhammer, not Helldivers! Keep it up and get the hose again! Anyway, long story short, the only trace of Varnak, his retinue, and the not unsubstantial population of the system was a message Varnak managed to leave behind with a warning about how rightly fucked we all were, and summed it all up by saying, we cannot survive this. And if you didn't already know much about AdMech, it takes a whole lot for them to concede any sort of inferiority to any sort of purely organic life form. This was our first knowledge of the Tyranid, a sacred desk fan molester beeping in the dark about how fucked we are. The second event was the one that occurred all the way back in the 30th millennium, where our old friend Barbarous Dantiok, a Chad even amongst Space Marines in their heyday, overloaded a device called the Pharos, basically a teleportation quantum communications array that was being used by loyalists to do unimportant non-Tyranid related things, so that invading Night Lords couldn't have it. This turned out to be a massive fucking mistake because, well, it'd be better if I just read the quotation. Out of the eternal blackness, a flash of quantum energy shone out many times the speed of light, a brief flare, a millisecond in duration, projecting from an unremarkable spiral of stars. It was not mist. In the darkness, something of limitless hunger stirred in a slumber that had lasted for aeons. A million frozen and unblinking eyes saw the flash, tripping a cascade of stimuli. Their purpose served, the eyes died, the entity processed the message the eyes provided, without ever truly awakening. Automatically, instinctively, its gargantuan dreaming mind analysed the signal, comparing it against all parameters for the one thing it sought. Prey. Slowly, glacially, the great devourer shifted its course. Whoops. These to me are both perfect examples of what the Tyranids are intended to be. A vast predator swimming through the void, a god made of monsters come to eat us, the biggest fish. If you're one of those players that always needs to find a way to be the victor in defeat, the sort of person who will lose a game and have a preloaded comment like, oh well, I lost this battle, but my faction are the winners overall because blank, first of all, fuck you, shut up. Second, you and your narcissistic tendencies are in luck, because the Tyranids have possibly the most justification for this sort of bullshittery. Because when a planet gets hit by a Hive fleet, it's like getting a combination of herpes, intestinal worms, and T-Rexes with herpes and intestinal worms all at once. There is no scooping them up with a Tupperware container and setting them back into the void where they belong. If they are there long enough, they will embed themselves into the ecosystem, as was possibly the case with the Catachan Devil. Or, they will try to implant themselves into the infrastructure of whatever society lives upon the planet, as is the case with the Genestealer cults, and possibly what's happening on our planet with Steve Buscemi. Come on, look at that face, and tell me that somebody didn't fuck a space bug somewhere along the way. That family tree had at least one termite in it for sure. fuck me, Victor. The last point I'll make in their favour is just how much little we know about them, and how everything we learn just makes them so much more horrifying. Like, you look at them and think bug, then you learn it isn't a bug, it's several. So many in fact that you're not sure there is an actual end to them. Then you learn that every pesticide you throw at the bug makes it more resistant to pesticides. Then you learn that those bugs have your house surrounded and are not only coming in through the front door, but are now tunneling up through your bedroom floor you just tried to call for help, and have now learned that the bugs have some sort of psychic ability to prevent the phone from working. In addition to making you feel incredibly anxious and agitated, you're alone. Lastly, you learn that these bugs can learn, and are more likely than not far smarter than you are. They are a galactic scale threat, and everything we've learned about them just makes resistance seem increasingly futile. Tyranids are thought to operate under a sort of hive mind mentality. When they're cut off from this hive mind, they're no better than feral animals, a bit like Gaz the Orc. They devolve to the state of your average Twitter user the second they get unplugged from the collective intelligence of the Hive fleet, a bit like Gaz the Orc. But not every Tyranid is capable of connecting directly to the source. Most Tyranids can receive the control signal, or synapse, but can't send it out. This forces the invading Nids to rely on what's called synapse creatures. These bugs can be thought of as mobile radio towers that can receive and boost the synapse to other smaller creatures and ensure they're following the directives of the hive mind. This on its own isn't too big an issue until you figure out that destroying these synapse boosting creatures cause the smaller ones under its influence to react more violently than your mother when she learns a local KFC can't afford to keep giving her free troughs of gravy. The chaos this can cause is sometimes enough to turn the tide from an easy meal for the Tyranids to a crushing defeat and waste of biomass. In stark contrast to the Space Marines, the Tyranids have essentially nothing in the way of narrative and story to follow. Sure, there is the Swarm Lord, but his motivations seem to boil down, eat and get killed by Space Marines. It's sort of hard to relate and cheer for him, even though the overall goal of the faction as a whole just seems to be get the big lamp that is Emperor Chris and the Astronomicon, and then just eat everything. It is epic, because of its scale and Lovecraftian nature of the bugs, but it's not that deep a pull. And if you're getting into Warhammer because of the detailed stories and tales of heroism, you're not going to find it from the Tyranid perspective. Finally, I feel like we need to address the time commitment you're going to need to make if you decide to play Tyranids, and how it goes hand in hand with heartbreak. Spending all that time, money and emotional investment only to inevitably have your heart broken when you realise the bugs were designed with lots of things in mind, but ease of transport certainly was not fucking one of them. There's so many pointy thin bits and unusual shapes within the range of minis that make up the Tyranids that packing them up, even through a good foam line case, to transport to a friend's place almost always results in a lictor losing some barbs or a couple of scything talons getting caught on the foam and pulling whatever model from your grip, only to fall in miserable slow motion towards the floor as you think of all the time you spent cleaning, gluing, painting and caring for that specific model, just for it to fall onto the tiles and smash into a dozen pieces. If you're around for metal Tyranid minis, you know the struggle of keeping your army looking like an army rather than a bit box. This is true, I had some metal Tyranids back in the day, and they had more superglue on them than paint. Now, the hive mind being probably one of the smartest organisms active in the current setting, doesn't exclude it from some severe stupidity here and there. One thing I can't help but point a finger and laugh at every time I see it is the old Tyranid 2nd edition miniature sculpts. The long noodle neck warriors, the massive underbite of the lictor, and I'm glad they're back because the new sculpt is a thing of absolute beauty. But the old Screamer Killer looked almost like a boxing mech with an angry testicle atop it than an apex predator. Fucking did and all. I know I had one. They are great and funny sculpts, and they're a piece of the hobby history that I'd never change, but look into the eyes of an old Hive Tyrant's face penis and tell me that you prefer that over the stuff Games Workshop is sculpting for the Nids now. Unfortunately, I also need to point the finger at the fans, or rather a specific sect of those fans, those being the ones who like to theorise, for my next point. While we are always trying to outdo the already apocalyptic nature of the Tyranids by coming up with wild theories about them, every time I hear the Tyranids are running from something, it makes my fucking balls itch. Like you have this extragalactic creature that defies classification, has a god level of omnipresence with its synapse range, probably controls more area than most of the other factions combined, and you want to suggest it's running away from something bigger. Let me tell you, if there is anything else there that's big enough to not just give pause, but actively scare and chase down the Tyranids like frightened prey, it is strong enough that it's pretty much immediately wipe our Garrets clean the second it is within range to do so. There won't be a light stand, there won't be amazing narratives of heroes fighting monsters, it would be at most an extended description of the fear and confusion and the very fast extermination spreading throughout the Milky Way. Odds are, we the victims wouldn't even know what hit us, as anything strong enough to force the bugs to run is going to be an immediate setting ender. There are other theories of varying degrees of stupidness, but that is the big one that causes me to hear static every time it's brought up, so that's the one I've gone with. Do you have a theory about the Tyranids that you think is especially stupid? Do you have a foolproof reason why the Tyranids are running away from something? Discuss it below. Lastly, I'd like to point out the stupid yet undeniable effectiveness of playing Tyranids, who are by all definitions a swarm army and deploying nothing but monster creatures. It is the ultimate fuck you to your enemies, and their expectations when they turn up to a battle with assault cannons and flamers are plenty, and you show up with Trigons, Carnifexes and Biotitans as far as your specs can see. I'm looking at you, Kyle. No, not you, Kyle, the other one, Kyle Jarvis. You're probably sitting there painting your big critters now, chuckling to yourself right now, aren't you? You son of a bitch, I've not forgotten you. Sorry, somebody in my book of personal grudges needed reminding I still want a rematch. Not a problem, Victor. Now that's a few key good, bad and stupid things about the great devourer as I see them, but I'm interested to hear from you guys in the comment section. Is there something I didn't bring up that you think should have at least got an honourable mention? Has Victor been overreacting to Cal's use of monstrous creatures that one last time for the last 15 years, or is his grudge justified? Discuss below. But thanks for watching, everyone. We know you only have a finite number of hours in the day, so we appreciate that you're willing to spend some of them with us. As always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and more importantly, share with any noobs that could use a good noob-splaining. Thank you very much, and we'll see you in the next video.